Extracts from the official 711th meeting report of October 8, 2018.
Translated with deepl.com.
Disclaimer: this is an unofficial translation. Source:
Zeitzeichen
107 on page 9 to 11.
Recently you said in a private conversation that the US-presidential Trampel Trump was not just stupid, but pathologically stupid, and also did not notice how he was badly influenced and abused in many things by his advisors and other people surrounding him and advisors. This was particularly the case with Russia, because in this respect Trump was influenced in a unipolar and inflammatory way by his anti-Russian consultants surrounding him against Russia, which he did not realize in his stupidity.
That's correct, because Trump is influenced all around, both in relation to Russia and equally in relation to all states of the world, in such a way that the USA are those states that are capable of unipolar leadership alone.
If I understand correctly, then you meant by the term unipolar that Trump is, so to speak, one-sided, single-track or one-pole, directed against Russia in a negative and malicious way by his false advisors and by the Russian hostiles who otherwise are rummaging around him, and that he is influenced in a hate-producing wrong way.
That is correct, because the USA are all those politicians, military and secret services, etc., as well as the anti-Russian part of the people who believe in the propaganda of lies of the anti-Russian government elite, want a hegemonic and thus unipolar world order, whereby the USA as the only state should dominate Russia and all other states.
That's what I mean.
Unfortunately, this will be the background of what is already in the offing, because for quite some time now the wrong advisors and other influencers around Trump have been exploiting Trump's pathological stupidity in order to incite him to agitate against Russia with threats, lies and suspicions, etc., which is and is not the case. On the part of the USA could lead to a breach of the disarmament treaty signed on December 8, 1987 in Washington in the White House by U.S. President Ronald Reagan and Soviet head of state Mikhail Gorbachev, with the INF Treaty, which contained the agreement on the dismantling of medium-range weapons in Europe. It was the first disarmament treaty ever to come into being, and which provided for the abolition of a complete branch of the armed forces. This was the first tangible result of the détente policy between East and West. But now this threatens to be destroyed by the stupidity of the U.S. president and to become the threat of another worldwide war. In the background, Trampel Trump, who in his pathological stupidity and self-importance does not realize that his advisors and other influencers surrounding him are all hostile to Russia and lead him to where they want him to be, namely to rush against Russia and the rest of the world in such a way and to create a worldwide uproar so that the USA can find reasons for acts of war that he is neither able to perceive nor understand. And in fact, as a result of Trump's stupidity, everything is as the advisors, who have a suggestive effect on him in the background with their insidious intriguing whispers, who otherwise hope for him to be a leader, an addict to world domination and a hateful of Russia, etc., will hope for. He then carries out everything according to the will of his whisperers without hesitation, whereby in his state of lack of understanding and reason he himself also devises all sorts of nonsense and reprisals against other states, or measures through which he exercises his personal threats, pressure, punitive and retaliatory measures directed at other states, etc. And he also does this because he feels mighty in his pathological stupidity and wants to bring his power to bear.
So this material nonsense and the pathological stupidity of Trump could become the origin for the fact that the Fourth World War could still come effectively, before it will be so far that mankind will sooner or later cause itself to disappear as a result of its overpopulation, stupidity and its related unteachability. which effectively threatens the entire earthly population that has grown into the gigantic. A fact, which is denied by so-called scientists and other humanity connoisseurs, and of which it is also claimed that humanity on Earth brings many billions more people into the world without any problems, and that the Earth is able to carry and cope with these further masses of people. An idiocy without equal, as well as the one that a Swiss expert broadcast on television about 2 months ago, that the entire agricultural enterprises in Switzerland are able to feed the population of the country, which currently amounts to about 8.7 million, compared to 4.5 million in 1950, if necessary. Already the Third World War of 1939 to 1945 proved to the contrary that this was not possible, although there were thousands more farms at that time, which have been closed down since then. At that time, the world population was also much lower than it is today, because in 1950 the population statistics counted around 2.5 billion people, whereas today, after around 70 years, it is already 8.9 billion. But I don't think it's appropriate to think about that now, because I'm interested in other things. And I have a question about that, which relates to what you said about the presidential Trampel Trump, namely that his stupidity is pathologically determined. Can you please explain what exactly is meant by this?
Already my father's faith taught you how to.
I know, but I think you should explain it from your point of view, because not all explanations have to come from me. Furthermore, I think that in the course of my 100 years some things are no longer so present to me that I can accurately reproduce and explain them.
I can accept that as an argument and like to explain what pathological stupidity is about. If effectively only pure stupidity is defined, then this has a form, which is always based on a lack of talent in the intellectual field and thus on a weak and insufficient intelligence. But stupidity is also a multifaceted factor, which is based on various forms, such as ignorance, carelessness, lack of interest, indifference, lack of effort and uneducatedness, etc. and so on. What can be described as pathological stupidity, however, cannot be interpreted in many directions, for it is founded in a pathological and therefore pathological consciousness-related disability, through which truthful things and values are only perceived abstractly, partially and thus incompletely in relation to the view and judgment of real reality and its truth due to a lack of intelligence, a healthy mind, clear reason, knowledge and wisdom, only relatively crisp, are viewed from unclear, limited, narrow boundaries and unclear points of view, but are not effectively perceived and understood, whereby everything regarding validity, reality, correctness, value, reality and truth becomes dependent and unclear on wrong perceptions, thoughts, feelings, views and prejudices, and all things and values are judged and expressed inadequately, unobjectively and biased, unwise as well as weakly intelligent.
For full explanation see 711th Official Interview Report.
Thank you. This explanation was long overdue, because as far as pathological stupidity is concerned, there's nothing in any of the smart books of earthly wisdom I've been thumbing through that would express that, as you just explained. But just as there are smart books in which nothing sensible can be looked up and therefore not learned from, there are also smart earthlings who think themselves big and clever, but are effectively being straw dumb, primitive, hateful and vengeful.